My name is Misha Sharif, and you're watching Decoding Careers, where I talk to professionals about their careers. Today we have Tony Androsky, who works as a pilot for American Airlines. Here's some information about being a pilot. On average, the salary for a pilot ranges from about $40,000 to $190,000. Correct? That was correct, right?
That works. Yeah, good enough. Yeah.
Studying to a pilot requires a bachelor's degree or military experience. Once hired by an airline, new pilots undergo additional company training that usually includes 6 to 8 weeks of ground school and 25 hours of additional flight time. A pilot must have a commercial pilot's license and an instrument rating. But in general, it'll probably take about 5 years of schooling. Hi, Mr. Androsky, how are you?
I'm very well. Pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I know you just got back from your trip from Bosnia, correct?
That is correct.
Came back from Bosnia. I did not want to mispronounce it, but how was that? How was traveling? And
it was wonderful. Like always, it's I think that's part of why I became a pilot. I love traveling. I love meeting new people and seeing new cultures and learning from them, and how that can positively impact my life.
That's great. So one of the first things I always like to know when I'm interviewing somebody is, what prompted you to choose a career? Like, was it like a calling, or did it take you a really long time to figure it out? What prompted you to follow your passion?
I think most pilots will tell you. I like to think most of all my friends are the same way. At some point when we were little boys and girls, we all look up at the sky because there's some noise, and we just knew we wanted to be in the clouds. We didn't know what that meant or how that was going to be or what that job, we didn't know what a pilot was, but we knew we wanted to fly. And as I grew up in a military background, both my parents were in the Air Force, so I got to see airplanes a lot. And then I was fortunate to meet pilots along my way, and I just knew whatever it took, I wanted to be a pilot.
That's amazing. And, I wish I had a calling like that, something that would tell me, oh, I would love to be a pilot or something. And it's really hard for me to know for professions like what I want to be, and having that calling just makes me really happy, because if you're saying that all pilots have that calling, when I'm in the air, when I'm flying on a plane, that makes me happy thinking that, oh, somebody who's passionate about being a pilot is driving this plane. That just makes me so happy, and that makes my soul just glow a little bit more. So as a kid, I did see a lot of planes in the sky, and now even more often, as I grew up, I saw more and more planes. I live near the airport, so I can see whenever I'm driving or whenever I'm with my parents, I just see a plane, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a plane. I love watching planes in the sky. I'm pretty sure everybody does. It's something that I used to play a game as a kid with my friends. We would look up into the sky and we'd try to see how many planes could we spot. And I wouldn't always win, but I was definitely first or second place. It was something that
I think you need to be a pilot, because we're the same way as kids growing up, looking at airplanes, counting them, trying to name what type of airplane. And my high school teachers probably wouldn't like this, but we used to skip school and go out to the airport and watch airplanes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. My friend, we knew we wanted to do it. We want to be around it. And when you have that calling, I think we're fortunate. Not every person, every kid in high school, all my friends going through high school that didn't become pilots, oh, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go to school? And I always knew. So I was very fortunate. It's nice to have, like you said, the calling.
Yes. And I think that is something that if you do have a calling, then you should go and pursue. You should go and follow your dreams. And I love
Absolutely.
that you were just able to know. I think that's really amazing. So let's go ahead and roll into the first question, which is what 3 words best describe your profession?
Well, I have to say, number one is safety focused. That is the paramount of being a pilot, the aviation industry, because without safety, it doesn't matter what else we do. If we can't provide safe air travel, nothing else matters. So safety focused, you have to be adventurous. We travel the world. I mean, even if it's from here to Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's adventure in that. Navigating weather and seeing beautiful sunsets. And then I would say multicultural, because, we connect the world every day at American Airlines, especially. Biggest airline. We fly to almost every continent in the world, and we get to meet new people, different languages, and get to learn from each other.
Yeah, so there is a lot of different aspects of being a pilot, and I think those 3 actually sum it up pretty well. And I really like how you said multicultural, because you compare just going to Oklahoma, even though we live in Texas, right? It's you're just going a little bit you're just going like it's the next day, but there's still like this
There's still
aspect.
so much to learn there. So much to
Yeah.
learn from somebody else, even in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's actually one of my favorite places to go. Great museums, great coffee shops, great restaurants, something new, something that we don't
Yeah.
have right here in Texas.
Yeah, and I think the world has so many different aspects and different things that as a pilot, you definitely have a chance to go and explore and go and see. And I think that's really cool. So earlier I was just talking about some kind of educational background that you need. Could you describe to me in your words what educational background is best for this kind of career?
So I'd say best, you have to have at least a high school diploma. That'd be kind of the bare minimum to get hired at a major airline, American Airlines, Delta, United, FedEx. They are gonna, I won't say required, but 99% of the new hire pilots are going to have at least a bachelor's degree. Many of us will have a master's degree. So engineering, there's a lot of colleges that offer aviation degrees as well. Those are probably the two most popular, aviation engineering. But I have friends that are pilots that were English majors, but you still found that calling. So it doesn't much matter exactly what degree you go into, but it is important to have at least a 4-year bachelor's degree.
Okay, so a bachelor's degree is definitely something that is established. And talking about education, are there any special certifications or trainings that are required for this job?
Yeah, so everything is governed by the Federal Aviation Administration. So in the very beginning, you start out just like you would in any when you're building to become something. You start out and you become, the first license is called a private pilot, which allows you to fly with other people, basically in good weather. But you can fly daytime, nighttime. Then you work towards your instrument rating, which is going to allow you to fly through the clouds, rain, without looking outside. You're actually learning to fly the airplane off of the instruments inside. Then you're going to get your commercial pilot's license, which allows you to earn money. So legally earn money. So you could do air tours, aerial mapping. There's a lot of different ways, pipeline patrol, flying people around to track wildlife. And then most people in the civilian route will go get your certified flight instructor certificate, which allows you to teach other pilots how to fly. So most of us do that, and you build time, and then you get hired at the airline, and then you get your final license. It's called your ATP, your airline transport pilot's license, which is kind of the gold standard to be an airline pilot.
Okay, so an ATP or getting your ATP is definitely something that every pilot should aim for.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a requirement to be an airline pilot. You'll have
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were just talking about like flying and how being a pilot requires so many things, but let's talk about the result of that. Could you describe to me a typical day in your job?
Oh, a typical day. Oh man, where do I start? So, as the role I play right now, as I always like to say, a role, because you could be a first officer or captain, big airplane, small airplane. So you could do something as simple as to Austin and back, San Antonio back, Tulsa and back, something very quick. We could go all the way to Guatemala City and stay the night. You go to San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, and I fly the 737. So we have 4 airplanes. We have bigger airplanes. We go to Australia, we go to Europe, we go to China, we go to all parts of Asia. Or you could go away for 4 or 5 days in and out of the US, Canada, Mexico, Central America. And then you typically fly somewhere 1, 2, 3 legs in one day, and then go to a hotel, get a workout, get something to eat, maybe go catch a museum or go see a movie, and then start all over for 3 or 4 days. You do that in a row. It's really
Wow.
fun.
Yeah.
So it's always, there is no typical day. I think that's actually part of the fun. Nothing's typical. It's always changing.
That sounds like something a lot of people look for in their jobs. Like a lot of people are like, I want a job that's not the same every day, something fun.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants that, then they can totally become a pilot. It's so doable. And it sounds really fun every day. Like if you're gonna be flying a plane for a couple of days, right? And you're just gonna be like getting glimpses. And I'm pretty sure as a pilot, you have like that huge window in the front. So
you have the best view that no one ever gets to see. I mean, the most beautiful sunrises, sunsets, thunderstorms in the distance. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
It must be. And I can only imagine what it looks like. Well, I have seen little glimpses from like the small airplane windows, but I think that cannot compare to like that huge panel the pilots have. That definitely is something I would love to see one day. Maybe if I do become a pilot, I will definitely think back to this and think about, oh my goodness, that's such a beautiful, yes. So let's go on. What do you think are the 3 most important skills needed for your job?
The most important skills, I think number one is always going to be an effective communicator. And, you learn, I go into this deeply, I'm sorry. communicating is not just talking, right? It's listening, engaging. You should never speak unless you understand who that person is, right? You have to always know your audience. So effective communicator, ability to adapt, right? I mean, being resilient, because in the job, things can change at a moment's notice, whether it's a schedule, the weather, a mechanical piece. I mean, there's a lot of things. So just being okay with things changing and knowing how to kind of the next step to do. And then maybe critical thinking skills, because of the constant fast pace and things always evolving and changing, that you have to know how to think critically and logically and say, okay, I'm going to do this because this is what makes sense for, the safety of the operation, the efficiency, the care of our customers, all those pieces.
Definitely. I think those three things are really important. And being a critical thinker is something that is very important, not just for being a pilot, but I think for every job. Being a critical thinker is something that is really admirable. And if you are really good at thinking on your feet and you can make the best decisions while you are under pressure, I think that is something that is definitely something I would look up to, somebody who I would look up to. I think that is really cool. And you were talking about like being able to think quickly on your feet. So if there is like a problem or something, right? So
Absolutely.
What are some challenges that come with your profession?
I think for most, for some of us that have families, I'm married and have a 3-year-old little daughter at home. And prior to her being around, being gone for 4 days at a row wasn't as challenging. So time away from home is an absolute challenge. But, and we'll probably talk about this later, maybe, how you deal with that. And I think that comes back to resiliency. It's a wonderful job. And it's a passion, and my wife understands that. My daughter understands that, so we make that work. And I think schedule changes is a challenge for a lot of our pilots, where it can change something unexpectedly, and you just have to be able to adapt. And I think that's where that resilience really comes in. And I think some high stress situations can happen, weather and mechanical issues, but it goes back to, we're trained to do this, right? We're good at this job, but it doesn't mean you're not stressed. So I'd say those are the three major challenges that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, so you were talking about having a daughter and having a family, right? So how do you balance your personal life with your work life? Because you were just saying that you're gone for 3 to 4 days. How do you do that?
Yeah. I think everybody, this is important, not just for a pilot's job, but for every human being in the world, whether you're in America or you're in Bosnia, and no matter what your job is. We all have different families, whether it's if you're in high school and you have parents, or you're at my stage in life and you have a spouse and a child, or you just have people you care about. I'll call that family. To me, that needs to be priority number one. And you need to be present. So when you're at work, be 100% present, right? Do your job 110%, no matter what that job is, whether it's a pilot or my first job was bagging groceries. So you always do 110% work, but when you're home, put your cell phone down, turn off all your social media, turn off your email, whatever it is that you might be distracted by, and be present with those that care about you. Listen to them. What do they need? What do they want? Have that great conversation, right? I think that is so important. And that's how I do it. When I come home, I'm with my wife, I'm with my daughter, I'm with my parents. I want to be around them.
That sounds really good. I feel like that's great advice to anybody who does work, because when you're gone 3 to 4 days, I'm pretty sure there is like some kind of there's like a pang of homesickness that you may feel. Sure. And when you come home, right, it's like my family. And even though I go to school and stuff, my family does take they are a big part of my life. And I think sure. that your advice of being present with them is something that is really important, because in our day and age, there's so many things. There's like school that totally takes up all of my time. There's like hang out with my friends, and there's movies and so many things that are present. But when you are with your family, I think it's best that you give them their time. They you definitely, I think as a kid with a mom, a dad, and like 2 brothers, being with my family is something that I really love. And I really love that advice that you gave, because when you are present, it makes them feel happy too. You can definitely connect with your family more. And a lot of people, I think it might be hard for them, but I think that your advice can apply it, and it can definitely work for anybody and everybody. I think I love that advice. It's like so profound. Thank you. Thank you for that advice. And
You bet. Absolutely.
here is the last question for everybody who is not paying attention, or for everybody who needs to know the most important thing. This is the most important question, in my opinion, and I think in general, this is definitely the most important question. What advice would you give to a high schooler who's trying to pursue this career?
Surround yourself with wonderful people. Be positive. I can't stress that enough. Always have a positive attitude. Be persistent. Never give up, because life will give you challenges. And entry into becoming an airline pilot, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of schooling, and things you're like, I can never learn that. And you will. If you know, it's like anything. There's things that are always challenging, but you got to have that can-do attitude, so to speak. And if you can, find a mentor, and whether that's a current pilot or somebody just understands the industry, or maybe somebody that doesn't know the industry, but it's just a wonderful person. So you want that mentor that is positive, and he provides motivation and makes you a better person. So like, I think the easiest thing to say is just surround yourself with great people, and that'll drive you to get whatever your dream is, whether that's being an airline pilot, which is the best job, or any other job. You know, I think, and it makes you a better human being, which is what the world needs.
Yes, definitely. The world does need a lot of good people, and a lot of people do say that your friends are reflections of you. I don't know. Yeah, so
I would agree.
having good friends is something that is really important. Thank you so much, Mr. Androsky. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. Thank you so much for being interviewed, and thank you so much for being here, present, and giving me and the viewers all of this great advice that I'm pretty sure will help everybody. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.